розпочинаємо робочий день.
Good morning, dear colleagues, and I will speak about why new government anti-corruption program will not just provide grants for fighting corruption. We'll have you Sikora and from the Foundation Open Society. Ivan, the floor is yours. Good morning, dear colleagues. Today, we invited you to publish the position of the Foundation Open Society as to new anti-corruption program. As we found out on Friday, April 24, that new anti-corruption program was adopted 20 days ago on April 4. That event was not noticed in mass media among experts, but this is the situation, and we would like to publish our position. To tell you about an open letter to top officials of the country, to international organizations, and to experts who must know about risks and shortcomings in the new anti-corruption program. And then we would like to inform you about the initiative that is focused at monitoring and assessment of anti-corruption policy in order to get results. That's the plan of the work for today. I'd like to mention that as a Foundation Open Society, we analyze different anti-corruption programs. The previous one that was adopted by under Yanukovych, and a lot of shortcomings or mistakes they made when they developed it. And they had problems when they started to implement it. I personally had experience I was a consultant on the Council of Europe, and I participated in the preparing the package of anti-corruption legislation for Ukrainian government in 2009. I have experience of analysis and monitoring anti-corruption programs in 2011-2012 for implementation of anti-corruption program that was adopted under the previous government. And these assessments, they are quite open. We made a research on implementation of the corruption program in Chernihiv and district. Also, we analyzed the program we shared experience how to prepare anti-corruption program for Kievan region, and now we prepare one more program, anti-corruption program for Kiev. They will publish it soon, but let's come back to the subject of our event. I want to draw your attention to one simple thing. We understand that corruption destroys the country, and that is and then there is low level of trust to the authorities, to the government, to courts, to prosecution. That has influence on GDP. It is manifested through low services. It's all of that is related to inefficient use of public money, and the state that should use and should have public policy, should have efficient public policy, doesn't do it doesn't perform the powers it has, doesn't use efficiently. That's why we believe that for the development of any document, there should be indexes. There should be tools to measure. If we cannot measure something, that's bad for any government, because if we say that we are focused on the process, we'll prepare indicators to measure results. But for us, it's important to understand how, on the stage, when we have a program, how we can measure results. That's the main issue. That's why we would like to draw attention to the fact that, in our opinion, the anti-corruption program will not allow to measure the progress of Ukraine in corruption fight. And why is that? We can state as experts that we see that they repeat mistakes from the previous anti-corruption program. We see that they focus on the process, not on results. The process of anti-corruption fight is non-stop, but we want to understand interim results and final results of this policy. And those indicators should be in anti-corruption program. We believe that they ignored declared strategic indicators and recent of 2020 Sustainable Development Program. It was signed by the President at the beginning of this year, and there are indicators Ukraine must achieve in different global ratings, in GDP, some indicators of trust to public authorities. But when we read the text of the new anti-corruption program, clear indicators are not to be found. And that's a problem. We see that new anti-corruption program doesn't meet requirements, doesn't meet legislation we have in Ukraine. That makes us surprised, because the Ministry of Justice that developed this program should know that the legislation on about state programs and also about procedures of implementation, and that legislation about state programs and anti-corruption program is the state program, and then it will be funded from the state budget. And not only, we understand that that program will be funded from international donors, by international donors. So there must be indicators, quality and quantity. They must be developed. They should be developed considering requirements of legislation to the development of such documents. As a think tank, we prepared typical approaches to develop such a program. We made them public and we provided them to the Ministry of Justice, which developed that program. Unfortunately, we have to state that the approaches and proposals were not, those proposals were not taken into consideration, and also as a think tank that makes us concerned. We wanted to pay attention to such an important thing. If we consider concrete proposals we have to this program, that now it's very important to outline clear parameters Ukraine must have in global indexes. When we speak about the level of corruption in Ukraine, we always say journalists and public officials say the level of corruption in Ukraine is high. And as evidence, there is a position, there is Transparency International, and it shows on which place Ukraine is, and some others. Those are criteria of assessment. Is there progress in corruption fight, or should we continue? Or again, we see orientation on process land, using such to have trainings, to develop recommendations, and to create some bodies, new agencies. But we, as taxpayers and citizens of Ukraine, we want to understand how will we assess final results, and that's extremely important for taxpayers because we understand that the program cannot consist of orientation of exclusively on process of the process of creation of a law enforcement body. We understand the process of creation of a body is important, but we must know is results to be achieved by that body, that agency, that adoption of different legislations. That's very important, and we speak about that in the program. But we want to understand what will be the effect if that legislation is passed in order for reducing corruption, and how that will improve the attitude to authorities, and how will we improve the quality of public services. That's very important for us. We want concrete proposals. We have, and we publicize, and we write a letter statement to the President, Speaker, Prime Minister, heads of the committees in the Parliament, and factions, and international organizations and experts. We also speak. We want to get support of experts from abroad, because we show that there are some shortcomings in the new anti-corruption program, and if they are not resolved, there can be a risk that money will be wasted and will not get that effect we like to get in corruption fight. We draw attention to, we say that results should be reflected clearly, because this is the program for 3 years. They should be reflected, and the progress should be achieved by Ukraine in global indexes. For example, in the index of Transparency International. And because the position of Ukraine in the index of Transparency International is mentioned clearly in Strategy 2020 signed by the President of Ukraine. Then we draw attention. It's important that we implement these programs. If we cannot measure something and assess it, then we will assess the process, not final results. For us, it's important to have results, like reducing the level of corruption, how that will happen, in which fields, who will assess that progress. That's why for us it's important that there are clear indicators. We gave proposals how that could be done. And we showed in the end of January how, in case of a political will, how we could measure influence of this program on the issue of the conflict of interests, which is quite important for Ukraine. It includes a number of activities to prevent that phenomenon. Then we would like to draw your attention that there must be clear indicators as to the level of trust of experts, environment, lawyers, and two courts, and that there should be a clear percentage Ukraine should achieve on that issue. Also, it's important to measure on the base of the poll, a national poll, a level of trust to law enforcement bodies that are responsible for implementation of this anti-corruption policy. Then we understand that corruption has a very bad influence on GDP. So, not only anti-corruption policy can help us with this, but other policies in economy and in other fields. But we need to understand how that will happen. Because corruption has negative influence on economy, and the level of relations in shadow, it's a consequence. And people don't want to pay the taxes. It means that people don't like public tools of economic activity. And that should be measured, and we should have clear indicators. Then we would like to mention that there must be clear indicators in the framework of international initiatives. For example, openness of the budget and transparency of construction and other sectors or other industries. There must be clear progress in providing public services. We want to say that the full information about proposals we provided many times, we have that on the website of the Open Society, and that's accessible information. That's open information, and that's important for improvement of policies. Because of the situation, we initiated an independent monitoring assessment of government anti-corruption program, which, in our opinion, in such a shape, in such a form, cannot serve for anti-corruption policy. And we inform about this anti-corruption policy, and will monitor in order to achieve results. This is the statement we published today, and we'll send it to top officials, to experts, to international organizations. It can be signed. It's open for signing. And civic activists and experts who would like to participate in this, they could help to make this policy more responsible, and also should have clear indicators as to results oriented, and also it should be efficient use of funds from the state, and also funds that support Ukraine in corruption fight. Thank you. If there is any question, please. Thank you. Why program? Is there a question? Thank you very much. Hope to see you soon. Come and tell us whether that anti-corruption program will work.